Hello and welcome back to the Science Behind Soccer. My name is Trevor Grant, and today we have an interesting topic to discuss. Everyone that plays soccer gets injured at some point, whether you sprain your ankle, pull a muscle, or even just get a bruise on your shin. And as you get older and compete at higher levels, you become more and more prone to injury because the game becomes much more physical. Today, we're going to find out how to recover from an injury as quickly as possible. The secret to a quick comeback is the acronym RICE. RICE stands for Rest, Ice, Compression, and Elevation. Rest. After you initially get hurt, it is important to assess the situation. After you get stepped on or kicked, sometimes you just need to shake it off. If the pain is severe and does not go away in a few minutes, or you feel it's getting worse, you may need to take a break. Ice. Cold reduces pain and swelling, so apply an ice pack right away to the painful area. You should apply ice for 20 minutes at a time, 3 or more times a day for the first 2 days after you get injured. Then, after 2 days and when the swelling stops, apply heat to the area to loosen the muscles. Remember, use a thin towel or clothes so that you don't apply ice or heat directly to the skin. Compression. Compression also reduces swelling. You can use an elastic band such as an ACE wrap from a pharmacy, or you can buy a compression sleeve if the affected area is a limb. One thing to note is to make sure that it is tight enough, but not too tight to the point where you feel numbness or tingling. Elevation. Elevation is yet another way to reduce swelling that can be used with the other methods to maximize recovery speed. Elevate the injured area with a pillow when you are sitting or lying down. Also, try to keep the area at or above the level of your heart to minimize the swelling. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to rest, ice, compress, and elevate if you want to get back into the action as quickly as possible. Lastly, please like the video if you learned something, and subscribe to see all my other videos. See you next time.